After speaking with God at the burning bush, Moses returned home with a decision to make. For 40 years he had lived quietly in Midian. He had become a shepherd, a husband, a father. Life had become comfortable, but God had called him back to Egypt, the place of his greatest failure, the place he had spent 40 years avoiding. Now Moses packed his belongings and prepared for the journey. His wife Zipporah and their children would travel with him. In his hand was a simple shepherd's staff. It did not look impressive. Yet God would use that ordinary staff to perform extraordinary things. As Moses began walking toward Egypt, his heart was filled with questions. Would Pharaoh listen? Would the Israelites believe him? Would he fail again? Only God knew what awaited him. God had already been preparing another part of the plan. Moses' brother Aaron traveled into the wilderness and met him along the way. The two brothers embraced much had changed over the years. Moses shared everything God had spoken at the burning bush: the mission, the promises, the miracles, the calling. Together they would return to Egypt. Together they would stand before Pharaoh. When Moses arrived in Egypt, he gathered the elders of Israel. The people listened carefully. For generations they had cried out to God. Now Moses told them that God had heard their prayers. Aaron spoke the words God had given. Then Moses performed the signs. The staff became a serpent. The people watched in amazement. Hope began to rise. For the first time in many years, they believed freedom might actually come. Soon the moment arrived. Moses and Aaron entered Pharaoh's palace. Massive pillars towered overhead. Golden decorations filled the hall. Royal guards stood on either side. At the far end sat Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, one of the most powerful men in the world. Yet Moses was not there on his own authority. He carried a message from God. Moses spoke boldly. "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go." The words echoed through the palace. For a moment, the room fell silent. Then Pharaoh laughed. Who was this God? Why should he obey? The Israelites were his workforce, his laborers, his slaves. Pharaoh had no intention of letting them leave. His heart was proud, and pride often refuses to listen. Instead of releasing the Israelites, Pharaoh became angry. He accused them of being lazy. Then he gave a cruel new order. The Israelites would continue making bricks, but now they had to gather their own straw. The workload became almost impossible. The people suffered even more than before, and many began blaming Moses. The Israelite leaders were devastated. They confronted Moses and Aaron. "You have made our situation worse," they complained. The people who once celebrated Moses' arrival now questioned him. The promised freedom seemed farther away than ever. Sometimes faith is hardest when circumstances get worse instead of better. Moses was discouraged. He had obeyed God. He had delivered the message, yet everything seemed worse. So Moses prayed, "Lord, why have you brought trouble upon this people?" It was an honest prayer, a painful prayer, and God listened. God answered Moses. The story was not over. Pharaoh's resistance had not surprised him. God promised that he would reveal his power. The Israelites would be delivered. Pharaoh would learn who the true God was, and Moses would witness miracles greater than he could imagine. Moses stood between two impossible situations, a stubborn Pharaoh and a discouraged people. Yet God was working even when nobody could see it. The confrontation had begun. Soon Egypt would witness signs and wonders unlike anything in history, and the God who spoke from the burning bush was about to display his power. Many people believe that if they obey God, life should immediately become easier. But that is not always how growth works. Sometimes the first step of obedience is followed by difficulty. Sometimes doing the right thing creates new challenges. Sometimes the breakthrough comes after the struggle. Moses obeyed God and things initially became worse. Yet God had not abandoned him. He was preparing something greater. The lesson is simple. Don't judge God's plan too early. Some of the hardest chapters in life are preparing the way for future victories. And just because things become difficult doesn't mean God has stopped working.